Hey, what's up guys, TechTime here and I'm back again with a brand new video. So before I begin, I want to thank you all so much for watching. So basically this is going to be kind of my 3-month review with the Galaxy A55 5G. I have a lot of good things to say about this phone, but in my opinion it's not perfect. It does have one major problem and some minor things here and there that I want to discuss. But as far as design, it's definitely one of those things that scream, in my opinion, premium. So on the sides you do have this brushed aluminum. On the bottom of the phone you have your USB-C that does support 25 watt of fast charging. But the larger size of the A55 plus the effect that it feels a little bit better because of the brushed. And it is in fact cheaper than the Samsung Galaxy S23 FE. I actually did a comparison between both of these phones. I'll leave it linked in the description below if you're interested in that. But essentially that's kind of the story behind the design of the A55. Definitely miles ahead of the A54 from the previous generation. Okay, so the next conversation that I want to discuss is within the display of the device. So the Galaxy A55 has a 6.6-inch 2340 by 1080p Super AMOLED display that has all the bells and whistles that you would expect a display to have. Now, of course, if I were to nitpick, I would tell you that the side bezels are a little bit on the larger side compared to other devices, but that's just me being a little bit picky. This is still a fantastic phone that, one, has a up to 120 Hz of refresh rate, which is fantastic. And in addition to that, it does support HDR10 Plus and has 1000 nits of high brightness and 1200 nits of peak brightness, which is, again, just fantastic. Premium stuff. I know phones nowadays have like crazy 2000 nits and things like that, but in addition to all of that, you do have an in-display fingerprint sensor that was easy to set up, easy to use. I don't want to say that it's faster than a physical sensor, but for the most part it was reliable. Bottom line is this: when it comes to kind of watching your content, watching videos, browsing through social media, anything that would require you to kind of look at the display is really good on this phone. I have almost no complaints. Again, if I were to nitpick, I would say that the side bezels are a little bit on the larger side, but that's something that I can live with, to be honest with you. And the speaker also matches the same energy of that of the display, so it gets fairly loud. I will let you guys take a listen to it, but bottom line, gets loud, really good speaker. And the top earpiece also acts as like a secondary speaker or a subwoofer, if you would. So take a listen and then we'll have a conversation. Full review, so make sure you stay tuned for that. So with that being said, the first thing that I want to talk about is the design itself. So Motorola took a kind of improved design approach this time around. So last year it was this plastic that, felt really slippery. This time around they used this kind of fake leather material that provides a really nice grip to the phone, and it really reminds me of the Moto Razr that I did a review on a couple of months ago. So next in my conversation of using this phone 3 months later has to be the camera system. Now this phone has a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main sensor, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 5 megapixel macro sensor, and it can also support a couple of things that I will discuss here in a little bit. But essentially the good things that I want to take away from this phone is that it does take some pretty decent pictures. They're not going to be things that will compete with their premium lineup or things that will compete with the iPhone of the world or the Pixel of the world. However, it does take some respectable pictures, transitioning between the the main sensor and the wide angle is fairly smooth. It's not the fastest that I've seen, but it's definitely good enough. And this camera app is just what you would expect from Samsung, simple to use, straight to the point. However, one of the things that I want to discuss is that this phone actually does support, well, one, it does have optical image stabilization, and it also does support 4K recording at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 30 or 60. And in addition to all of that, the front-facing camera is 32 megapixels, and it also does support 4K video recording. So that's some things that you would also could be of use for you. So if you use the front-facing camera a lot and you want to use it for video, you know, for TikTok, social media, things like that, then it would work really well for you because it does support 4K. So that's something that you should also consider. Now, as far as the picture quality themselves, like I said within my testing, it takes some respectable pictures. Sometimes I feel like they're not as bright or as well exposed as I would personally like them to be, but they're pretty good. They're decently saturated and overall respectable. Nighttime photography did shock me a little bit. So for the most part, it was pretty good. I didn't really have too much to complain about. The wide angle, on the other hand, is one of those things that obviously when you switch to it, you'll notice a lower resolution. Rightfully so. I'm not too mad about it. However, if I were to put this camera in kind of a conclusion, I would say that bottom line, it is respectable and should definitely be something that you wouldn't get too upset about when it comes to this phone, kind of price to quality ratio. So it definitely gets a thumbs up in that regard. Okay, so really quickly, the performance 3 months later. Now this phone does use the kind of Exynos 1480 based on a 4nm architecture. It is octa-core, and it does use the Eclipse 530 for your GPU, 128GB of storage, 6GB of RAM. That's just the unit that I have. Everything about the daily tasks still performs well. If I were to kind of nitpick, I would say that over the past 3 months, I did notice this phone slowing down just a little bit. There wasn't no heating issue or anything like that when I play games or anything like that, but I did notice it slow down just slightly. It wasn't nothing major. As far as your benchmark scores, they're still consistent. So your single core score came out to be 1162 and your multi-core score is 3493. So very respectable scores for a phone at this price point. It's actually a little bit competitive if you ask me. A lot of phones that are trying to compete with the A55 have like a 900 single core and a 25 to 2700 multi-core. So respectable score, a little bit higher than your average phone at this price point. Again, as far as the performance go, it's fantastic. If I were to again complain, it would be the charging speed and the fact that this phone does not support wireless charging. Think of it this way. The 2024 Moto G Stylus 5G, $399, 256 of standard storage if you buy the unlocked version. It does support 30 watt of fast charging, and it does also support 15 watt of wireless charging, which this phone lacks both. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that the competition is trying to be a little bit more fierce. So Samsung's next version, I can guarantee you, at least I hope so, it would have a wireless charging capability, but with this one, you just don't get it. Alright, so as far as the battery life, it was really good for the most part. The AMOLED display does its job in kind of helping with efficiency, and the processor for the most part, I feel like it's just efficient enough for this phone to last me a little bit over a day. Now here's my bottom line conclusion now that I've used this phone for the past 3 months in and out. I would say that this phone is really good. However, there is one major problem that would not allow me to recommend this phone, especially if you live in the United States. This phone is not fully supported by carriers. I bought the international version and I was not getting that good of a service, but I don't know if it's just my carrier, but I can tell you this, that this phone is just not supported in the US in general. Instead of this, we get the weak A55. I don't want to say weak, but it's definitely weaker than this phone. So yeah, this is kind of the major problem. If you live outside the United States, you should not be disappointed with this phone at all, especially if you're looking for kind of a mid-range device. Now, are there phones that would replace this device in the US? Yeah, for sure. The Moto G Stylus 2024 edition and a couple of other options that we can talk about in a different video if you guys would like. However, overall though, it is a really good phone, just not the type of phone for me, just because it's not really supported in the country that I live in. So with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for watching. I definitely want to hear your guys' opinion, so leave them in the comments below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you all so much for watching.